Hello and welcome everybody to DogWorks Radio. I am Robert, and today I am joined by author and dog trainer Marc Goldberg. He has been on the show before, and it's always exciting to talk with him. He is calling in from the Chicago, Illinois suburbs. Marc, how's it going today?
Robert, thank you so much for having me back. I appreciate it
Well,
very much indeed.
Well, thank you again for being on. I know we spoke a little bit ago about your book, and for folks that may not have heard that episode, could you give us a very quick bio? When did you get started in dog training? And then we'll jump in from there.
Well, I started in dogs. Let me think. When Richard M. Nixon was was the president, I'm pretty sure you weren't even alive then. So I won't give my entire history because it's very long. But when I was a kid, I was just destined to be a dog person, and so after a lot of begging and pleading, Mom got me a dog for my 11th birthday present. But who knew anything about dogs and training? I certainly didn't. And my puppy got hit by a car right in front of me on the road because he ran away and didn't come when called. Mind you, that dog lived to 17 and a half. He took me from the age of 11 to 29 years of age, which is like, an amazing span of a human's lifetime. Certainly all my formative years. And so I owe a lot to that first dog, Gus, my Sheltie Gus. But but his leg was all busted up. But when that got healed, my mother put us in dog training school, where we proceeded to mop the floor with everybody else on our scores, and we won first prize in graduation. So my dog was valedictorian of his class, I guess you could say, and that kind of started it all for me back in the dark ages.
And that truly was the dark ages. You had mentioned if I was alive back in Richard Nixon era. And as a matter of fact, I was born in 1971, but did not get started into dog training, at least professionally, till the early 90s. So you have a couple of decades on me for sure. And I'm sure a lot has changed even over that 20 years, but even more from that time until now. And I know during the last few decades, you have done a heck of a lot of work with dogs. You've authored 3 books. You work with the Monks of New Skeet up in New York. You have done a lot of stuff with dogs over the years. And today we're going to focus on your brand new book. It's called The Joy of Playing with Your Dog. Give us a very quick synopsis of that. I know at the time of this recording, it has not even dropped for sale yet. I'm sure it's for pre-sale. But what is the sort of gist of that other than the title?
Well, it drops in only, in only 4 days from the recording of this podcast. So it drops super soon. And I just one small housekeeping correction. I'm not the author. I am the co-author, along
Okay.
with the vaunted Monks of New Skeet, who've been writing books since the Dark Ages. And what the monks and I have focused on up until now are training techniques. So our first book, Let Dogs Be Dogs, was about how to live with your dog intentionally for better behavior. Our second book together was The Art of Training Your Dog, which details out our gentle e-collar method of training dogs and solving behavior problems. And then, so that's training, living with your dog, training with your dog. What's left is how to play with your dog, also in an intentional or purposeful way. And we felt that was sorely needed because what passes for dog play among the general public with their dogs, most dog trainers would call it just riling up the dog. The games people play tend to teach dogs the wrong lesson. And in fact, people quickly become upset with their dogs when all they really wanted to do was to enjoy a playful session. So we devised games, tricks, and socialization methods for every age range of dog, all the way through baby puppies, through senior citizen dogs, and everything in between. So purposeful play for dogs, which ultimately leads to better behavior.
Of course. And just for a timeline check here, Marc, when was that first book published?
Let Dogs Be Dogs was, we published that one in 2017. And then I want to say The Art of Training Your Dog in 2020. This book would have been out easily a year, The Joy of Playing with Your Dog. That would have been out easily a year and a half ago, but this little thing called COVID got in the way. And one of the things that we do when we write a book is we travel quite a bit in order to capture photographs in different locations. And this book is no different. There's over 200 beautiful photographs by our photographer, Vincent Remini, and he and our agent and we traveled all over the country to capture the perfect images of what dogs look like at play when it's done correctly, but also when it's going wrong, so we can show people what to watch out for.
I love it, and you're not writing in a vacuum, and I think that's very important. A lot of us just sort of have blinders on when we're going through our stages, and I'm thinking of us as dog trainers. We just sort of put those blinders on and our head down, and we just do what we think is right. And a lot of times we do not learn from each other, and I think that is a big crux in our industry, and I'm sure you would agree.
Well, I sure would, but speaking of the difference between the dark ages and now, this is the communication age. So what we have available to us as owners and also as trainers, what we have available as resources to increase our knowledge base, to provide food for thought, to give us a launching platform to develop methods and techniques that are unique and personal to us and which work for us that we can spread to our clients. That is so much more prevalent today. When I was a kid, there were just a few books on how to train dogs, and actually the monks wrote one of them, the How to Be Your Dog's Best Friend, which came out in '78. But really today we have seminars, we have books, we have podcasts like yours, where you share resources with your listeners, and I think that's critical because it gives us so much more opportunity to step outside the little vacuum of our own knowledge base and to benefit from the body of knowledge that has been developed over the last 50 years. So I think podcasts like this are and books, they're a beautiful and important step to not only helping the dog trainer, but ultimately our mission is to well, we think of it as helping dogs, right? But in reality, every dog lives in a family, even if it's a family of one. And so people are dramatically affected by their relationships with their dogs, their health, their finances, their well-being, their mental health. All of that is heavily influenced by the dog. If things are wrong with the dog, things are not right at home. And so this knowledge, this sharing that we have now is a hugely important thing, really, to benefit the people that we work with and that we work for. Because dogs don't have checkbooks, they don't have credit cards, dogs don't have Venmo. So we need their people, and it's a good thing that we're there for them too.
And before we jump into the book, Mark, you made a great point about having that knowledge to share, and you'd mentioned podcasts and books, and I think of that as a less intuitive way, if you will, than the way we get our content today. Most of the way that we get our content is very passive. We're just scrolling by and, oh, this looks cool, I'm going to hit like or comment or whatever. But books and podcasts, they take an effort to be engaged in, don't they?
Well, they do. I mean, there is a place for the Facebook story, for the quick Instagram post. But what we're doing right now with the podcast and what the monks and I have done with the books is long form deep dives.
Right.
And and I feel like that's very important because the benefit of social media, the quick Instagram story is reach. You get a very large net, so you can reel in and begin to inform a lot of people. But at some point, what do you do with that social media? And I think the best thing that you can do with it is convert it into the deep dive that we're doing here, so you can really give people develop a lot of information for them. But at the same time, you have to keep it, how to put it, people sort of shut down if you present them. This is just my personal opinion. If you give people too much science, if you give people a purely dry and academic approach to dog training and ownership, I think you lose them. So I think it's important to limit the vernacular and just talk like regular people instead of with an alphabet soup of scientific terms. That's just me. I know there's a lot of dog trainers who love their quadrants and so forth, but I prefer to talk to people um, like they talk to each other.
I
And
Yeah, I
mhm.
love that. I think that that's very important in order to get that message across. So let's jump into this book, Mark. And for our listeners, our goal is we're going to talk about 3 or 4 key points or takeaways of the book, and then dive into those a little bit so we can give people a taste of the book, and then of course offer a way for people to go out and purchase it, because obviously we can't cover everything in a 20 to 25-minute interview. So let's jump into this, Mark. What is the first key takeaway from that, and then we'll go from there.
I think the most important overriding principle that we talk about in the book is playing with a purpose. Know what you are going to accomplish with the game. So all of the games, all the tricks, all the socialization that we built into this book, we hid nuggets of dog training like gold throughout the games. You know, this is, let me sort of make a left turn and then I'll circle right back to answer that in a more direct way. I know somebody who is an expert at making shepherd's pie, and the stuff is just delicious. And what shepherd's pie is a mix of ground beef and vegetables and whipped potatoes, and then you stick it in the oven. It's really amazing. But she told me that the only reason she started making it was because she could trick her children into eating vegetables, because it has a lot of vegetables. But you don't know they're there. You don't taste them. They're not the they're not the preeminent flavor in the dish. And that's what we did in this book. Okay, we hid the training nuggets, the purposefulness of the play. So I guess that was the long answer. Here's the short one. If you play with your dog in the correct fashion, your dog can develop an off switch and self-control. And that is what everybody needs out of the dog, is the dog who can say, oh, I should chill now, even though company is here. I got you. I'll do that. And we can teach that to a dog with games, or we can teach the opposite of that, which is, crime pays. So we hid nuggets of self-control in all these games, which is, I think, what really at the end of the day, what most people want from their dogs.
And can you give us an example of one of those nuggets, maybe a quick scenario where you could use this purposeful play and then incorporate the training into it?
Sure, you bet. Well, for example, we talk about tug. Now, a lot of dog trainers default to just no tug. It's bad. And honestly, that has been the party line for a really long time until certain trainers began to play more with flirt poles and to incorporate sensible rules into tug. Our friend J Jack, who's recovering from quite a big accident. Nonetheless, I think he's one of the people who has done the most really for playing tug games with your dog. But ultimately, what we teach in the book is a form of control versus tug. So dogs love to tug. Frankly, it's kind of built into their nature. Who hasn't seen two puppies in the same litter? One picks up a stick and the other wants it, so he picks up the other end, and a hilarious game of tug ensues. But at the end of the day, if you do it wrong, you're probably teaching your dog to resource guard, and you might accidentally get bitten, if you do it wrong. So we teach tug, but we intersperse the drop, the relax. The reward is we get to do it again. So that's one example. Another one would be who hasn't seen the dog who loves to retrieve, but who runs away with the ball and just never brings it back, or who won't let you pick it up. Once he'll drop it at your feet and he's daring you to touch it, and then it becomes a game of who can snatch it back faster. So for those dogs, we incorporate thinking games interspersed with the retrieve, so that the dog learns, I'm on, I'm off, I'm on, I'm off. So we might teach a down in the middle of the game. We might teach that on the way to the ball. But I don't just mean, Robert, the body does a specific thing. I also mean the mind does a specific thing, which is to say self-calming. And so that's kind of incorporated into the game, techniques to teach self-calming, which is very important because calm is something you can never command. Each Each being with a brain gets to decide for themselves how to achieve the brain chemistry that makes them take a deep breath and relax. So if a dog can do that in the middle of a very physical game in order to achieve another round of that game, they can certainly do it when company comes into the house, right? Because they know how to achieve the, hold on, I need a second. Okay, I have found my center. Welcome, company. So there are a couple of examples there.
I like it. And that purposeful play is so important. So let's jump into takeaway number 2. What do you have for us?
Well, I think the next thing is I hear from a ton of people, my dog doesn't know how to play or doesn't like to play, or my dog won't fetch, my dog won't retrieve. And I think that's a huge one. Um, it's actually quite a problem. You see, a dog who will retrieve, but who is unruly during the game, well, that's a fairly easy fix, which we talk about in the book. But what do you do with a dog who needs exercise, but just seems to have no ball or toy drive? So there's a huge section in the book which talks about how to build that drive, because the reality is every predator has it. All dogs have retrieve drive. They have toy drive. However, it may be very much buried beneath the surface, or maybe you got a rescue dog who was just punished constantly for picking things up and now is afraid to. So we really talk about how to bring that drive out and to slowly build it. And in fact, I'll tell you a quick story. I have a German Shepherd at my feet laying down now. She's snoozing. She's only 6 years old. She's not old. And I didn't ask her to lay down. This is what she does half the day when she's not asking to be fed or to go out or to eat or eating her bone. And the only reason that she is stable and calm like this is the retrieve. She was an owner give up. She came to me as a client dog, and she was a bag of nerves. German Shepherd, not a biter, but a bag of nerves. I mean, whining, trembling. She could never pacing. She could never just relax. And but it was a dog from a kennel where the dogs are drivey. But this dog was 2 years old already and had never been assigned a job. Her obedience was pretty good, but the anxiety was killing her. And me, it made her very difficult to live with when I was training her. And what I needed was for her to run, but I'd take her out into my field. She wouldn't go anywhere. She'd just stand by me whining and trembling. I wanted to teach her to retrieve, but she had zero interest in any of that. So I took about a week to build drive. And now I can take her. Oh, and then of course the owner gave her up to me, which was a beautiful thing for me because I fell in love with this dog. But now I take her outside onto my farm. I use a chuck it so I can throw the ball, 50, 60 yards. And 4 or 5 of those tosses, and she is very, very happy to come in for the rest of the day and just chillax. And then maybe in the afternoon, before dinner, I'll take her out and give her another couple or few throws. It was a dog who needed to focus on something. She had anxiety because she was born to do a job, but she didn't have a job and she didn't know what job she wanted even. And so I think that there are so many dogs at home where people find them very, very difficult to live with. The people's time is very limited. I can drain a healthy German Shepherd in 15 minutes with a chuck it, with a ball. And so can you if you know how to do it. The problem is there's just too many dogs who don't care. So this book really devotes itself to teaching people how to build drive in dogs who need to play, but who don't know how.
And if I could ask one question here in regard to that, it goes to both, Mark, but I see a lot with our clients is they have great intentions going into the relationship with their dog, whether they get them as a puppy or a rescue or whatever. And then often, as you mentioned, either busyness or laziness creeps in, and all those great intentions that they had when they got the dog sort of goes out the window, and the dogs really just become, I don't want to say an accessory, but more of a couch potato type member of the family. How do you encourage people to stay active with their dogs? And I know, of course, we're talking about play, but as you know, it can be a very quick thing to jump into where, oh, I don't have time, I don't have whatever, and then the relationship just sort of builds on that.
Right. Well, first, let's look at why that is. And you're 100% right in your assessment there. but I think if we don't understand the roots of that problem, it can become very, very difficult to fix. And so when the monks of Newskeet and I were delving into really trying to dissect the current state of the human canine relationship for let dogs be dogs, we did some research, and what we found was that leisure time that people had in the 60s and 70s is gone. It's gone. People are working longer hours. Their budgets are stretched tighter. And when you work at home, which we both do, people who have to commute to the office might envy us. But I can tell you, in one way or another, you're working from the minute you get up until the minute you close your eyes at night.
Right.
Because your work is surrounding you. It's everywhere. You never know when that client is going to call on. Anyway, so people really are short shrifting the dogs because they have to. And in fact, a lot of them feel guilty about, they don't have their kids in as many activities as they would want to. Or it may come down to, do I do something productive with the dog, or do I put my kid in Boy Scouts? Like, the choices are very, very rough today that people have to make. And if we understand that, then I think we can kind of come at this problem with the view that we need to give people the perfect 15 minutes. If we can give people, like, this is what you do. If you've got 15 minutes with your dog today, here's what you can do with it that makes it productive. And so there's an awful lot in the joy of playing with your dog that takes 15 minutes and ultimately can contribute towards better relationships, which is really what we want. Nobody likes being frustrated with the dog. But if you do nothing with them, as you say, you get relationship dysmorphia. It's just nothing is as you would have wanted it to be, or as you would want to perceive it. And if the dog is unhappy, some of them will just turn into a couch potato. Those dogs are easy, but there's a healthy percentage of them will eat your house or your neighbor. So doing something with that dog is important. So what we've really tried to do is to give people productive stuff to do in real time, things that busy people can actually accomplish.
I love that term, the perfect 15 minutes. And that's something that we stress to our clients all the time. Just a 15-minute training session or play session, whichever, can do wonders for that relationship with your dog. Marc, let's jump into the last takeaway, since we're about out of time here. What do you have for us?
Well, let's end on this. The dog park, the dreaded dog park. Now, this is an area in which I think dog trainers, we professional dog trainers, there's very little that dog trainers really, really, agree on. We are a splintered group with many different factions, but I think most factions dislike the dog park. Most dog trainers call it Lord of the Flies, survival of the fittest. And I'm sure we have a biased and a skewed view. And here's why. Because in our practices, yes, we get to see dogs who were friendly to other dogs, but have become reactive after some kind of bad incident at the dog park. So, however, I think our view is skewed because millions of dogs go to the dog park every single day. And the number of them that are, getting killed, beat up, or psychologically damaged in those dog parks, it's a small fraction of the dogs who use it. But that being said, dog trainer knows what to look for in the dog park. So we have an entire chapter on what behavior is okay in the dog park and what is not. And we photographed it. We will show you this is okay, this is not, and here's why. And I think most critically, we talk about how to be successful in the dog park, what kinds of dogs should go, what kind of dogs should not. And finally, I think our most important piece of advice, once we've educated people about what good, healthy dog play looks like versus dog play which leads to problems, is we advise people to now take that knowledge that we've given you, stand outside the gates of the dog park before you enter, and just watch for 5 minutes. This is a perfect opportunity to teach your dog self-calming by, with a sit or just hanging out. And once your dog relaxes, then you can let him in, provided what you've seen in that park doesn't trouble you and we tell you what should. So ultimately, dog-to-dog socialization is one of the most spiritually healing things that you can do for a dog because they're not bred to live in isolation. This is a sociable pack animal. they do crave others of their kind, but we want to help our readers in this book to have a healthy and productive time at the dog park. So forewarned is forearmed, knowledge is power. So we want our people to be able to go to the dog park, but to do it in a safer way.
Such great advice there for sure. Marc, how can folks, number one, connect with you online? I know you're very active. And then secondly, where can folks buy the book?
Okay, well, let's start with the book. The Joy of Playing with Your Dog. It starts shipping in just a few days, and you can get it literally anywhere books are sold. Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, some Barnes & Noble stores. No store carries every book, but it'll be in Barnes & Noble stores and the website. It'll be at Northshire Bookstore. It'll be at all the independent bookstores, Target.com, Walmart, wherever books are sold. If you want to get a hold of me, there's a couple ways to do that. First is my website is ChicagoDogTrainer.com, ChicagoDogTrainer.com. And on Instagram, I'm Chicago_dog_trainer. That'd be me.
Very good. And we'll definitely put links to all of this stuff in our show notes. And of course, forward any questions that we get over your way on social media. Marc Goldberg is our guest today. Marc, it's always a pleasure talking to you here on the podcast, and keep up the good work and continue to write those books with the Monks and New Skeet. And I think that relationship that folks have with their dogs will be much better. I'm sure you would agree.
I can't wait to talk to you about the next one, which is already in process.
Oh boy, here we go. A little bit of a teaser for sure. Again, thank you to our guest today, Marc Goldberg. This is Robert for DogWorks Radio. We'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.
Got a dog training problem? There's a podcast for that to stay updated on everything dogs do on DogWorks Radio. A podcast hosted by master dog trainers and business coaches, Robert and Michelle Forto. Every week, they will introduce you to pet professionals with unique insights on dogs in the veterinary world, in books and films, and working with canines. The podcast also answers questions like how long does it take to train a puppy, or what are the different training styles? Get some surprising answers on DogWorks Radio, wherever you listen to podcasts. From First Paw Media, this is DogWorks Radio. We hope you enjoyed this podcast, and we invite you to subscribe in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. You'll find a link on the episode notes. You can tap or swipe on the episode cover art, and you'll see some offers from our sponsors. You can support our show by supporting them. If you like what you have heard, we would love it if you could give us a 5-star rating and tell your friends how to subscribe too. Your hosts are Robert and Michelle Forto. Our producer is Robert Forto and created for First Paw Media.